What is up, my fellow critics? CriticA here. I know, I've been away for who knows how long, but I'm back now, and you're seeing this image on screen, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what's going on here? Aren't you, a Nintendo person? Well, I am, but I also love Five Nights at Freddy's. And you're seeing this and you're thinking, oh, am I going to do an audio reading of Into the Pit? I mean, there are plenty of those online. Maybe one day, though. That'd be fun to do. I think that'd be fun. Maybe to do one day. But that's not the reason I bring up this image. The reason I bring up this image is because I have a theory that I'm really confident about, and I want to get it out there. I know it's probably not going to be big, maybe one day in the future it'll get big and, get recognition. But for right now, I just want to at least get it out there to some capacity. But before I explain to you my theory, I do want to let you all know I am almost done with my senior year of high school. I'm almost done. I'm almost there. So, I'm almost done. So, plus, I'm getting a job. So, my first job. So, that's awesome. But yeah, hopefully all of you wonderful viewers, critics, guys, gals, hopefully all of you are doing great. Yeah, but without further ado, let's get into the theory, shall we? So the theory that I have, that I'm really confident about, is one of the FNAF 4 bullies. If you haven't seen the meme of Markiplier was at the bite of 87, then, you don't know. But if you need a quick recap, let me catch you up to speed. So basically in FNAF 4, the crying child he still doesn't have a name, but he's afraid of the animatronics. He's afraid of them. And, his older brother and the older brother's friends are tormenting the kid on his birthday. And so they're like, oh, look at your little brother, how pathetic. It's hilarious. I think we should give Fredbear a big kit, get him up to Fredbear, and give. I think the little man said he wants to give Fredbear a big kiss, which results in not the bite of 87, but rather the bite of 83, or the chomp of 83, whatever you like to call it. And for me, so. Oh, okay, never mind. Let me back up. So, basically, the four friends, the older brother and his three friends, are wearing, masks. And, the older brother wears a Foxy mask, the animatronic pirate Foxy. And the other three bullies wear, Freddy Fazbear mask, Chica, the chicken mask, and Bonnie the rabbit, or Bonnie the bunny, whatever you want to call them. And I believe that Oswald's dad, the main protagonist from Into the Pit, the first story in the Fazbear Frights, his dad, Oswald's dad, is one of the bullies. Now, which one it is, I don't have a definitive proof, though. Maybe the Bonnie bully, the bully in the Bonnie mask, but I don't know, that just seems too obvious to be true. And, you know, now you may be thinking like, well, what are you talking about? That's impossible. And for any of you who are FNAF theorists, you should know that the books and the games are different, but they are also connected, and they give us bits and pieces of the lore. And I don't really necessarily know how this theory fits into the main storyline. It's more of like a side theory. But if any of you could take this theory and expand on it, then good for you. But also, let me know, and I can give you my thoughts on it. So, that's my theory. Just what the theory's about. That I think Oswald's dad from Into the Pit is one of the FNAF 4 bullies. From FNAF 4, from the minigame of the Bite of 87, which is really the Chomp of 83. And I have only 2 quotes from Into the Pit that I'd like to read to you. Only 2 quotes. Well, technically 3. And some more evidence. But, and some other smaller evidence. But I think this evidence is so, overlooked. But I think I believe it to be true. So, I'm going to read to you 2 quotes from pages 4 and pages 39. These are the 2 main quotes. And then I'll, when I'm talking about timeline or the time frame, I'll go to page 5. But, yeah. So, the first quote I'm going to read to you is the quote on page 39. And this is the quote that a lot of people would go directly straight towards because it's more obvious. It's more simple. You don't have to think as hard. And the quote on page 4, to me, in my opinion, is actually the more interesting one because it allows your mind to think, while the quote on page 39, excuse me, is more straightforward. So, I've got the physical copy right here on page 39. It says, quote, "In the morning, as Dad was driving him to the library, Oswald asked, 'Dad, how old were you in 1985? "I was just a couple years older than you," Dad said. "And other than baseball, all I could think about was how many quarters I had to spend at the arcade." "Why do you ask?" "No reason in particular," Oswald said. "I've just been doing some research. Jeff's Pizza. Back before it was Jeff's Pizza, it was some kind of arcade, wasn't it?" "Yeah, it was." Dad's voice sounded strange. Nervous, maybe. He was quiet for a few seconds, then said, "But it closed." "Like everything else in this town," Oswald said. "Pretty much, yeah," Dad said, pulling up in front of the library. Maybe it was Oswald's imagination, but it seemed like his dad was relieved to get to their destination, so he wouldn't have to answer any more of his questions. End quote. So, that first quote, on page 39, you can see why, it's the quote that people would jump to if they thought of a theory like this, and not on page 4. It's more out there, it's more obvious, his dad acts weird, it's like Oswald asks him, "Hey, Dad, 1985, before Jeff's Pizza, what was it?" And he says, he just freezes, kind of, or just, hesitates, and chooses his answer, and takes a long time to answer. And, he says, but it closed after being quiet for a few seconds. And he seems relieved to get to their destination and drop off Oswald so they wouldn't have to answer any more questions. So that quote alone already pretty interesting. But the more interesting quote, in my opinion, is on page 4. I'm flipping there now. And the reason this quote on page 4 is more interesting to me, don't worry, I'll explain I'll go more into detail about both quotes after I read the quote on page 4, but the quote on page 4 is more interesting to me because it allows you to think more. And, this could be me reading too much into things, but then I also have some other evidence as well. And, just some thought process ideas of what it could be. So, on page 4, it says this, quote, "Are you excited? It's the last day of school?" Dad asked. It was one of those questions adults always ask, like, "How was your day?" and "Did you brush your teeth?" Oswald shrugged. "I guess, but there's nothing to do with Ben gone. School's boring, but home's boring too. When I was 10, I wasn't home in the summer until I got called in for supper," Dad said. "I rode my bike and played baseball and got into all kinds of trouble." "Are you saying I should get in trouble?" Oswald said. "No, I'm saying you should have fun." End quote. So, if you're not really like a deep thinker or critical thinker, this quote is like, you're probably thinking, why did you read this quote? It's not as interesting as the quote on page 39. And to you, yes, I agree. But to me, a person who thinks, a lot about small, minute details like this, this is the more interesting quote. And I'm going to read again the part that, of the quote that, really caught my attention. And I'll explain what I think it means. I'll read it again. "When I was 10, I wasn't home in the summer until I got called in for supper," Dad said. "I rode my bike and played baseball and got into all kinds of trouble." "Are you saying I should get in trouble?" Oswald said. "No, I'm saying you should have fun." End quote. Right? So here we have Oswald's dad saying, "No, I got into trouble, rode my bike, played baseball, all those things you would do in the 80s. And also, lo and behold, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, extremely popular around 1983, 1987, 1985. Key point there, 1985. And he says, all kinds of trouble. Then Oswald asks if he should get into trouble, and his dad says, "You should have fun." Now, what makes this quote really interesting to me is, you can take all kinds of trouble into any direction, especially around 1985, because, well, yes, Freddy's is is it fiction or nonfiction? One of the two. The one that's like, obviously inspired based off like Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, it is in the real world, because later it mentions, Oswald watching YouTube at the library. And, so, at-home video game consoles, such as the NES, weren't that popular, and on page 39, Oswald's dad mentions how, how many quarters he wasted on arcades. And Freddy's has arcades. So, here's what I think. I think you can take all kinds of trouble into any direction, like I just said, and the direction I take it in is he was friends with Foxy Bro, the older brother of the crying child. That's why he's hesitant when talking about 1985 and before it was Jeff's Pizza, why he seems he wants to leave on page 39, getting into all kinds of trouble. And, he says on page 39 that he's a little bit older than Oswald was in 1985, a few years older. But we know the bite in FNAF 4 took place in 1983. So, how do I want to say this? So, basically, what I think is, he, was like 10, 12, 13 years old around 1983, 1985. And he, was part in helping the younger brother of Foxy Bro, the older brother, in helping the crying child into Fredbear's mouth in the bite of 83. And just as a side note here, on page 5, it says, so Oswald in school. This is just a side note, by the way. I'll get back. I know this is kind of confusing. But it says on page 5, quote, Oswald didn't have any modern electronics. True, there was one laptop at home, but the whole family shared it and he wasn't allowed to bring it to school. He had a phone, but it was the saddest, most out-of-date model imaginable, and he didn't want to take it out of his pockets because he knew any kid who saw it would make fun of how pathetic it was. End quote. So that's just a little side note just to tell you, like, oh, it is in modern times. He is old enough, Oswald's dad, to have a kid, in modern times. Like 2019, 2020, he's around his 40s. It's common for people at that age to have kids that are 10, 11 years old. It's common for that to happen. So we do know that this is taking place in modern times. But now I know what you're thinking right now. It's like, okay, sure, I can kind of see it, but like, where's the real evidence? Where is the real evidence that you have? Well, dear viewer, fellow critic, do I have a treat for you. The person that Oswald's dad married. Who is it? Where does she work at? Where does Oswald's mom work at? The hospital. He overreacts when he sees his son in the ball pit. And he's like, don't you know how furious your mother would be? I was so worried. You could have caught pink eye. Pink eye. He doesn't want his son to go in the ball pit. He wants his son safe. What does this have to do with anything? Why would he marry a nurse who works at the hospital if he, obviously, he could be attracted to her, like, ooh, yeah, and, the whole shebang. But there could be a deeper meaning to why he married specifically a nurse to keep their son safe so that nothing like what happened in 1983 would happen ever again. Boom. Did I just blow all of your minds? I am, and just so you know, I understand that the book and the game lore aren't the same. The books help us to infer about things that, might be in the games. For example, We originally thought that, oh, Golden Freddy can only have one soul, and that was so hard to fit into the lore of the games. But Fazbear Frights helped us to find out that no, an endoskeleton can have two. So Golden Freddy most likely has two. The spirit of the crying child and Cassidy, the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. So, and I know that, but I think this theory is true. Now, I'm not saying that just because it's my theory and I came up with it, but there's so much evidence to say that he is one of the bullies from FNAF 4. I'm confident to say that this is highly plausible. And, guys and gals, I'm very confident. I've come up with a few other FNAF theories before, that maybe I might talk about on the channel, if y'all guys and gals really want me to. But, out of all of them, this is the one I feel the most confident in. And, this is just a theory, and whether I'm right or wrong, I'll be okay with it. I'll be sad because I was so confident in this theory, but I'll understand, okay, that's not right. But, I think that this theory, to an extent, is very much so on the right track. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Are you a FNAF theorist? If so, comment below and tell me your thoughts on what you think about this theory. And maybe you have some other theories of your own. I don't know. But, yeah, so I'm back, hopefully for good. Maybe I can do a video at least maybe once every week. Hopefully. I'm hoping to do that. But as of right now, this is CriticA signing off. And don't have a good day. Have a great day. I'll see you all, fellow critics, in the next video. Subscribe, and I'll see you later. Goodbye, friends.